Namaskar, welcome to Sansad TV. This is your host Manish Kumar in a very special series on foreign affairs and the world of diplomacy. We now focus on South Africa today. With Africa, most industrialized and advanced economy and great natural resources and diplomatic outreach globally, South Africa is seen as a leader on the continent, and its triumph over the apartheid gives Pretoria, the capital, moral authority and leads to advocate for an international order in which developing countries can be more clearly heard, and non-alignment remains its key foreign policy. And with India, it's historic, no doubt. And together with India, South Africa raises the concern of the global South in a multipolar world. In exclusive session on this, we have South African Acting High Commissioner, Mr. Cedrick Crowley, on South Africa's economic and global outlook today and its special relation with India. I welcome Mr. Crowley, Acting High Commissioner. I begin asking you, give us an overview of India and South Africa. Share the strategic partnership. How do you look at India-South Africa bilateral relation today, where geopolitics is highly polarized and fragmented? Please give us an overview to begin the session. Acting High Commissioner, Mr. Crowley.
Good afternoon, Mr. Jha, and thank you so much for having us in your studio and for the opportunity to be with your viewers. Of course, the relationship between South Africa and India formally is 30 years old. Last year, we celebrated 30 years of diplomatic relations. But that relationship is much longer. It's a relationship started by people, the indentured laborers that moved into South Africa. It started with the anti-apartheid movement, the role of the Indian delegation at the UN, raising the issue of human rights abuse in South Africa. It started with Gandhiji visiting and being in the country to fight against racism within my country. And so it's a long relationship based on principle and solidarity. And since the establishment of diplomatic relationship, that relationship has built, it has grown. And today, India is South Africa's second biggest trading partner in Asia. And South Africa is India's second biggest trading partner on the continent. And it's a very diverse relationship spanning from economics, political. We are partners in bilaterally, of course, very strong relations, strategic partnership we have. Partners within BRICS, within IPSA, within the G20, within IORA, within the UN, within the G77 and NAM. So definitely the relationship is strong and growing. And my sense is that geopolitical relations, the foundations for good multilateral relations starts with bilateral. Fortunately for South Africa and India, we have strong relations. If bilateral relations between countries are weak, the case of Palestine is an example. Palestine and Israel, the issue of Ukraine and Russia, that has complicated the geopolitical relationships. And so I think the importance of good and healthy bilateral relationships are fundamental for global stability. And in this regard, I think India and South Africa, with its non-alignment, with its southern perspective, has stood the test of time and continue to collaborate and to cooperate in the best interest of developing countries, of their own populations, to secure development first and foremost, because that is what we need.
Do you think India and South Africa could converge and lead on global issues, agendas, as both shared, as we said, historical ties and also history together? What's your take on this?
No, I think that is absolute yes. Overwhelming yes. We've seen that demonstrated during the COVID pandemic, when South Africa and India led campaigns within the WTO to ensure that TRIPS agreements and waivers are in place in the interest of the global South. We saw that with the expansion of the G20 during Prime Minister Modi's chairship of the organization. We saw that during South Africa's chairship of BRICS, where we had the expansion and 6 countries were invited. Yes. And so the principle of inclusivity, it is part of our DNA as countries from the developing world. We also have an immense interest and our policies towards eradicating poverty, unemployment, and to improve the development outlook of our countries. That is what we share. Not only for ourselves, that's not only what we want for ourselves, because you rightly say in your motto that the world is one family. And in our customs and tradition, we have a saying that says, I am because of you. If you don't strive, if you don't develop, I cannot strive and develop. And so our outlook is more than just pure national interest. It is for the interest of those that are excluded, and hence our joint efforts, whether it is in BRICS, whether it is in the G20, the IMF and World Bank, or the Security Council, to see an expansion of those organizations so that they do reflect the reality of the 21st century.
And you did mention the parallel thread between the foreign policies and global outreach and very values of two countries. The world is a one village, and we take it in that way, which is similar ethos South Africa has. But we are talking about, as you said, you emphasized on the multipolar world. We have institutions like BRICS, which is strongly coming up. But despite it's also seen as it remains confined to a high-level participation from the member states. People would like to know basically beside the objective of BRICS, how it's unfolding in terms of solving trade issues, in terms of resolving larger political issues even between the members. Could you talk about effectiveness going forward?
No, I think compared to other global institutions, the BRICS is quite young. Yet it is one of the first to expand in terms of membership and to become more representative. So I think it has a significant track record. Also in terms of institution building, the bank, the National the Development Bank of BRICS stands as a testimony that we are not only a talk shop, but we can actually deliver, and deliver in the interests of the South. And so I think that increasingly BRICS countries are discussing issues of mutual interest, including peace and security globally. I just looked at the communique of last year. Significant number of paragraphs dedicated to conflict situations around the globe. And so the important issues of politics that impacts on economics, I think increasingly is receiving attention, but equally on the issues of trade that is so important for our countries and for our development. We need an open, transparent, inclusive trading system that is rules-based. And that currently is being threatened through unilateral actions, unilateral sanctions. It is being threatened by the absence of an appeal and an appellate body at the WTO. And so I think as BRICS countries, uniting, articulating the voice of the South to say we need a non-discriminatory, rules-based trading system for the globe, I think that is important because that carries weight. Individually, of course, we can make those calls and demands, but given the weight, the total weight of our economies increasingly becoming stronger and more important in this multipolar world. So I think they play an important role.
Mr. Crowley, you look at the BRICS as an institution which go out of the member states' concern and take care of the concern of the bigger world, even much beyond the global South we talk about. You think BRICS can shape in that direction in the future?
No doubt that the demands of the BRICS are closely aligned. If I look at any statement, whether it is the G77 statement, whether it is that of the non-aligned movement, you see the South reflected in there. Because I think our values are the same. Values of solidarity, priorities of development, values of equality amongst member states. I think those values is what informs our positions eventually. Of course, there may be nuanced differences because you rightly put it, there may be differences within the group and amongst the group, but our tool is one of diplomacy and the communication and active engagement to resolve those challenges. When you look at the issue of the reform of the United Nations Security Council, for example, there is the BRICS is on record to to supporting the African Union position. Whether it is on the area of development, it supports Africa's voice on issues of development, including the Agenda 2063 of the AU. So I think that because we do not impose our views on others, ours is a collaborative engagement with countries of the South to jointly come to solutions and not to have preconceived outcomes in our minds which we imposed on others. I think those are the fundamental frameworks that informs BRICS' approach to development and global issues of geopolitics, security, and human rights.
And then, Mr. Crowley, again in the same fashion, the regional, I won't say the impactful country, I won't say the powerful country, the regional power, and how do you look at that justifying the United Nations as a body today? You think it does take account of the concerns worldwide, especially those emerging countries and voices like yours and ours, if you say in the context?
I think that the United Nations Security Council in particular is probably the most important one in terms of the consequential decisions it can take. I think the international financial institutions in the main that decides on very critical issues that impacts the development of other countries, those organizations are in need of reform and serious reform. They are in need of expansion and of greater representation. That will ensure one, legitimacy and representativity. Now they are lacking those, and there are incremental steps being taken to improve those. At the end of the day, the efficiency and effectiveness of the UN Security Council will be tested. We've seen it recently, whether it is on the Ukraine-Russia conflict, whether it is on Palestine-Israeli war. The ineffectiveness of that organization has been demonstrated. Even the Secretary General has expressed concern that this organization, the Security Council in particular, does not reflect the reality of the 21st century.
And you reflect the similar demand from India, have the similar
Yes.
concerns about that. There's a need and unanimous voice towards reforming United Nations,
And what is encouraging is that demand is not only coming from the South, but there are increasingly a realization from countries in the West and the North in particular that this is a dire and important priority in order to ensure that multilateralism, which we all support, is effective and can deliver for the people.
And back from the geopolitics to the South Africa itself, the world also expecting, these emerging, countries to grow in terms of the economic gains and trade and commerce. And there's a lot of expectation from South Africa, of course, coming out of the long years of apartheid and constraint, which did not let you grow in the way. Look at talking about the Treasury national budget, even of South Africa estimated a growth rate of 1.3 for the 2024. If there's a concern, is South Africa falling short of expectation on the economic front? Could you tell us on the economic outlook and the growth potential, which we all talk about, in all possibilities?
No, thank you very much. I think that the 1.3% growth rate, as you indicate, is of course falling short of what we need to address issues of unemployment, inequality, and development more general. But there's also a context. The context is that we are coming from a post-COVID situation that has had a negative impact on economic growth globally. Even if we look at the global statistics, the growth figure for the year you're referring to, it's in the region of 3%. So that shows that globally, the economic growth has not been at the desired level. Of course, we have also had our own challenges, whether it is infrastructure challenges, it is the issue of harbors, it is the issue of electricity. Those were challenges that impacted negatively on our economic and our economic growth. Happy to say that those challenges are being addressed. We have seen significant improvement in terms of energy availability. We've seen improvement in terms of our growth trajectory. And I think that just as the new government is taking this country forward in the next administration, those issues will continue to be prioritized, and South Africa, with its fantastic financial institutions, with its rule of law, with its wonderful labor force and people, will be able to present a fantastic investment opportunity for our colleagues in finance. Also, in terms of foreign direct investment, we received 100 billion rand of investments last year, in the last financial year, which is more than 1% of our GDP. And that reflects the continued trust that people have in our system and the faith they have in our economy as a whole.
And this is important because as South Africa is seen as a heart of economic activities in Africa, and your economic growth will have a spillover effect on the entire continent, and this is an important factor. But back closer to India and South Africa relations, we also focus on some of the silver lining here, like even the trade has increased from 10 billion between India and South Africa in 2015-16 to 18 billion US dollar in 2022-2023, if I'm more precise, and if you can correct if there's an anomaly in the figure. But I would like to know, Mr. Crowley, what are the opportunity and areas of cooperation that you see unfolding between the two countries, especially in the trade economic aspect, and setting the target much higher and more ambitious, though we are closer to the target we set earlier during the Prime Minister visits to South Africa and the bilateral MOUs which we had.
No, I think you are quite right. We can be happy with the level of trade between our two countries, but we should never become complacent about those figures. There is significant scope for improving those figures, because as you rightly put, the level of engagement is broad, it's wide, it's from commerce, it is includes pharmacy, ICT, the automotive industry. So there is fantastic opportunities both ways for investment and for export and for trade. What also makes it very critical is in the context of the continental free trade area. If Indian companies have a foothold in South Africa, for example, and it can demonstrate the rules of origin, it satisfies those obligations, it has a significant market of 1.3, 1.4 billion people which it can access.
Africa.
The entire Africa as a result of the continental free trade area. And that access, I think, bodes well for investors that look at South Africa.
Is a continental free area is sort of economic free zone you're talking about, which has some sort of incentive for the investor? If you could just more define what that it offers to investor. Say for what are the opportunity and incentives for the Indian investor who are keen to participate in the South African economic story and contribute towards its economic growth.
Yeah, should an Indian company that has a manufacturing plant on the continent, anywhere in the continent, because what it does, it gives you the same tariff. So the export tariff, there will be one tariff for all of the 54 countries on the continent. So instead of you having to negotiate with my neighbor or countries to the north, if you have a presence and a manufacturing capability within our borders as a continent, you will have access to the rest of the market. So it's one common market that is being established. And I think that should be a fantastic opportunity for any economist, anyone that is in trade, to set up factory and to ensure that they can access that important market.
So do you offer more incentives, say in terms of a company who wants to set up a help from the government in terms of the land acquisitions, in terms of the labor participations? How does it work in South Africa? There are a lot of investors who are very keen from India to be part of that. First of all, based on our historic relation and values we share, and of course, and seen as a big market to be part of economic activities. If you could talk about again more specific, High Commissioner.
Yeah. No. Let me then talk specifically about the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition of South Africa, which has a number of incentives available. particularly in the area of the automotive industry. Once you want to set up, we reach out, we can put you in contact with the representatives, relevant representatives that will assist you through Invest South Africa, meeting the obligations, the requirements for creating an industry and to set up a manufacturing plant in the borders of the country.
Right.
Also, there's other sectors, including the business processing units that is being established, especially those created by India.
So there are multiple agencies and blocks which help investors to look into the possibilities into South Africa.
And to make sure that there's an ease of business for those potential investors. The president for the last 5 years has developed or held what he called the investment conferences. And part of his agenda was not only to attract investors, but to ensure that once they invest, there's no hurdles that makes it difficult for them to invest in the country. So that's why the infrastructure, the type of one-stop shops is being facilitated through the DTIC.
So here the message for the Presidential Ramaphosa, for the Indians to
come and invest.
But towards the end of the discussion, the paucity of time, it's very important also to highlight the India-South Africa Security Corporation, especially the Defence A Corporation, which was also in the backdrop of Defence Expo, which happened 2022 in Gandhinagar, Gujarat. The dialogue between India and South Africa revealed various aspects of conference and outcome, something which focused on adopting strategy for synergizing and strengthening defense and security cooperation. What are the possibilities in defense and the scope of cooperation with India? Both are emerging countries, both require a security and different equipment, to be built, manufactured, how we can come together. If you can talk about especially this aspect, High Commissioner Crowley.
Mr. Jha, as a follower of foreign policy, you will recall the commitment Prime Minister Modi made when he was in Uganda, that Africa would be the priority for India. And in that 10 principles that he espoused, one aspect of it related to areas of peace and security, counter-terrorism, etc. So what we have seen is those commitments now being given effect, whether it is the expansion of the G20 by giving Africa a voice, but also the recent military cooperation and increased engagement on the continent. And there are a number of areas. We've seen that as a result of developments in the Middle East, how important the Indian Ocean once again became in terms of trade. So the issue of security, maritime security, anti-piracy, anti-terrorism, collaboration in terms of peacekeeping on the continent, capacity building, those are some of the outcomes that were discussed with India, and I think that creates a fantastic platform for future cooperation, because in the absence of peace, our development will not take place, and therefore we need to ensure that we secure peace on the continent and globally, so that we can focus on the challenges of development, and there India becomes an important partner for us.
I think, High Commissioner, you highlighted the key issues, especially the maritime collaboration, also the anti-terrorism activity, and also possibility of having defense equipment system which we make together in the future, building a security partnership. I thank you so much, Acting High Commissioner Mr. Cedrick Crowley on Sansad TV. This is Manish Kumar Jha signing off. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
To watch more programs of Sansad TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share them.